Everyone joining us from all over the world, and we're here at the Misano World Circuit Marco Simoncelli for the second stage of the TCR European Endurance. The third round of the 2024 season has gotten underway earlier today for stage 1, and here we are for the second batch of 55 minutes plus one lap that will decide the finishing order of the third race of the season. It's only 3 minutes until the formation lap starts, and of course the starting grid has been determined by the finishing order of stage 1 with the results of the opening part of the race, and stage 2 they were about to witness being summed up at the end of today's stage in order to get the final results. And it was, and it has been, a phenomenal showing, almost a perfect first half of the weekend for this car, the number 72 PMA Motorsport Audi of Sandro Pelatti and Franco Girolami, the latter joining Pelatti after the Italian had a great performance in Vallelunga, the second round of the season, where he finished in second. Of course, the Audi prepared and dealt with by PMA Motorsport has been the quickest car all weekend, securing pole position with the best time in both Q1 and Q2, and of course leading the race after the opening 55 minutes plus one lap. Alongside the number 72 Audi, we have the other RS3, the first of the three cars from Texaco Team AMS, and it's the number 2, the championship leaders of Eric Brigliadori and Turgut Konukoglu, the latter taking the start in stage 2 as the formation lap now gets underway. It's Sandro Pelatti who leads the cars out of the grid and towards turn number 1, with Pelatti and Konukoglu fighting, although be it at a certain distance in stage 1 on a lap time basis, with Pelatti managing to increase the gap slightly between himself and the Audi RS3 of Turgut Konukoglu, the championship leaders, who are definitely looking to gain even more points this time around to try and be in a prime position ahead of the final round of the season. As now, of course, we have Turgut Konukoglu looking at Sandro Pelatti. The number 2 car of Texaco Team AMS needs, especially at the start of this second stage, to grab P1 and try and lead the way before the pit stop window opens, and arguably the two fastest drivers of the entire grid, Eric Brigliadori for the number 2 car and Franco Girolami, the 2022 TCR Europe champion and reigning TCR Italy title winner, jumps in the number 72 of PMA Motorsport. But behind them, the fight is still open for the final spot on the overall podium. Barkin Pinar in the Gen 1 Audi from Texaco Team AMS is currently holding P3, whereas in the fight for the DSG class, it's Ottavio Capelli and debutants Faro Racing, one of the first teams ever to be interested in this series, has finally made its debut here in Misano, as the Volkswagen Golf becomes the latest manufacturer, latest car to join the TCR European Endurance grid, and it's doing so in a brilliant job by holding the lead of the DSG class, just ahead of Seda Kachan in the other Texaco Team AMS car. Everything looks to be ready for stage 2 of the TCR European Endurance, the third round of the season in its first year in the history of the championship, promoted by Mauricio Slaviero, as stage 2 is ready to get underway as the lights will turn green. We're going to be racing for another 55 minutes plus one lap here in Misano, with Sandro Pelatti leading the way towards turn 1, but Turgut Konukoglu had a phenomenal start and is now looking around the outside to claim first position, but Sandro Pelatti won't let that happen without a fight, and the Italian still holds P1 in this stage 2 with Barkin Pinar and Ottavio Capelli right behind him. However, the Golf has already lost a place to Seda Kachan, the Turkish driver, immediately going up to 4th and crucially in the lead of the DSG standings trying to gain as much time as possible in order to be in the fight for the win, needing to compensate after losing some ground in stage number 1, but it's a perfect start for Sandro Pelati despite an early charge from Turgut Konukoglu towards turn number 1. Sandro Pelati was able to engage in the fight and come out victorious out of turn 1, as Sandro Pelati now leads the way with Turgut Konukoglu in second position and Barkin Pinar in third place. Ottavio Capelli now overtaken by Seda Kachan as the drivers start racing through the night. Of course, the first time in the championship's history that a race has been held at night time. That's why we're racing in both stages on the same day, as the program will come to a close a day early instead of finishing up on Sunday. We are wrapping things up today on Saturday night, as Sandro Pelati strikes first in this stage 2 as he held the lead despite a good challenge from Turgut Konukoglu, but the number 2 car wasn't able to grab P1 from Pelati. Barkin Pinar keeping third position just ahead of Seda Kachan, who is now up to 4th, whereas Ottavio Capelli is slightly struggling now, holding 5th position but losing a bit of ground over Seda Kachan. Of course, Capelli will then give the car to Stefano Comini, a 2-time TCR International Series champion back in 2015 and 2016. Driver with a lot of experience and of course 2 international titles in the TCR world under his belt. He's not the only one though. On the starting grid we'll have Franco Girolami take over from Sandro Pelati, hopefully for PMA Motorsport in the lead of stage 2 after sort of dominating the entire weekend so far. The season has been one-sided with the number 2 Audi RS3 of Texaco Team AMS taking the win in both Balaton and Vallelunga, but a late charge in the championship from PMA Motorsport, who missed the first round in Balaton but finished in second in Vallelunga and are now leading here in Misano. They could be on the front foot of a late title fight, as the Italian outfit is following the race closely from the pits with 51 minutes and 35 seconds remaining. Pelati ready to start the third lap of stage number 2, but of course lap number 34 in the entire race after what happened earlier today. As here you can see the entire PMA Motorsport team and Franco Girolami on the right looking on Sandro Pelati as the Italian extends his lead over Turgut Konukoglu, gaining 2.5 seconds in the second lap of stage 2 alone. Amazing pace from Sandro Pelati. Of course, now the temperatures being quite cooler. For the first time, the drivers are adapting to night racing in the season. Pelati with a phenomenal 1 minute 43 seconds, 0.8. One of the quickest times of the entire weekend. Behind them, it's Barkin Pinar in third place, the Gen 1 Audi, rewriting history this year, as for the first time it appeared on the front row of the grid. A feat that happened back in Balaton in the first round of the season. The number 3 car entrusted to Barkin Pinar and young Turkish talent Zekai Özen finished in second position in qualifying, ultimately missing out on the podium after a mistake exactly from Pinar actually in the first stage of the opening race of the season. And here you can see Texaco Team AMS following the race of their 3 cars, currently holding second, third and fifth position, but crucially in the championship holding the lead in all 3 classes. The overall standings being dominated so far by that exact car, the number 2 of Turgut Konukoglu. You can see now Sandro Pelati mounting the curbs and trying to extract as much as he can from the car. Once again, a phenomenal lap time in 1 minute 43.7, whereas Konukoglu is still lapping in 1 minute 46, is not finding perhaps the right temperature in the tires, struggling to fire them up and losing ground over Pelati. They were so close in performance throughout stage 1. So this is very uncharacteristic from the number 2 car, which is now struggling to keep up with the PA Motorsport Audi, who is looking stronger than ever here at the start of race of stage 2. In the fight for the DSG class, it's Sedaka-chan holding P1 so far in stage 2 with a 3-second gap over Ottavio Capelli. Here you can see the Texaco Team AMS pit wall following closely as the second stage starts going through the night. Now Pelati with a very aggressive line through turn number 14. Let's not forget that the Argentine had a 35-second gap after the opening stage of race number 3, which means that he needs to contain the damage in stage 2, which however doesn't look to be the case, as Pelati is quite clearly the fastest man out on track right now, with Turgut Konukoglu still struggling to fire his tires up to temperature, losing a couple of seconds in the previous lap as well. Meanwhile, behind, it's a great rhythm from Sedaka-chan, who is still gaining quite some time over Ottavio Capelli, as the TCR DSG class is looking to be as exciting as ever, with the leaders in the championship, with Sedaka-chan and Ibrahim Okyay, her teammate, the very experienced Turkish driver, leading the way, winning both races in Balaton and Vallelunga for the start of the season. However, a late challenge from Faro Racing Team with Ottavio Capelli and of course Stefano Comini looking very dangerous for the fight for the DSG win, as now we can see Sandro Pelati rounding out lap number 36 in order to start lap number 37. 46 seconds and 12 minutes to go, and this is definitely the best case scenario for PMA Motorsport, as they are now have what looks to be around a 45-second gap, considering both this stage and stage 1's results, with Konukoglu unfortunately needing to speed up quite a bit if he wants to give Eric Brigliadori a chance to make up the lost ground, but unfortunately so far it doesn't look to be the case. And here is Stefano Comini ready to take over from Ottavio Capelli in around 15 minutes time. The Italian still in second position in the SG standings for stage number 2, but crucially so far in the lead of the overall standings for this race, of course in the DSG class, against Sedaka-chan, who unfortunately had a bit of a mistake in stage number 1. She went in the gravel trap into turn number 13, losing control of her car during her outlap. Of course, a very crucial moment in the race, as the pit stop window will see a minimum of 2 minutes and 40 seconds spent in the pit lane. And unfortunately that meant that Sedaka-chan lost quite a bit of time, and crucially the lead of the DSG class, which the Turk had inherited from teammate Ibrahim Okyay, was able to hold 4th position in the overall standings. As you can see, Stage 2's classifications in the top left corner as Pelatti starts lap number 38, 1 minute 44 flat the last time around for Pelatti. Finally, Konukoglu dips into the 1 minute 45s, but still not quick enough to hold on to the Italian, who was really looking good at the start of stage 2. Marquin Pinar further behind in third position. Of course, Pinar, if he was to finish this race, he would be crowned the Gen 1 champion together with Zekai Özen, as Seda Kachan and Ibrahim Okiai are looking to do just that in the DSG class. Whereas for the overall standings, we will have to wait for the final chapter of the season in order to decide who will take home the first ever overall title in the TCR European Endurance history. The series promoted by Mauricio Slaviero, giving teams and drivers the chance to drive in an endurance format, which is definitely something new on the international level in the TCR world. Teams and drivers loving the format, as we have seen 9 different teams join the series throughout the opening 3 rounds. And of course, the championship being able to provide great scenarios such as this one, racing through the night in Misano, one of the only racetracks, especially here in Italy, capable of doing that. Of course, we've been here for round 2 as well in Italy, racing around Vallelunga in a very exciting round that saw changes to the script so many times, even in the final couple of minutes of stage number 2, which is why nothing should ever be taken for granted in the world of motorsport. Though Sandro Pelatti now has a lead of 14 seconds over Turgut Konukoglu. Behind him, Marquin Pinar is still holding third position, with Seda Kachan now speeding up quite a bit and still building up a lead over Ottavio Capelli, gaining 1.6 seconds on the Italian on lap 36. Drivers position from 3rd to 5th, a lap down compared to the 2 leaders, which is of course normal given that the number 72 and the number 2 Audi RS3s are from a different class compared to the others. Newer, faster cars equipped with a sequential gearbox, which is helping them lap as quick as they are. Of course, the TCR world not being a stranger for Misano, a track that hosted the European Sprint Series in 2016 and is of course permanently on the calendar for TCR Italy. As we see now, Pelatti, you can see the brake discs glowing on the front left of the Italian, who is pushing as hard as he can in order to try and build as big of a gap as possible on Turgut Konukoglu. Now 14.4 seconds between the number 72 and the number 2 Audis. And here you can see the newcomers of Faro Racing, one of the first teams ever to be interested in the project developed by Maurizio Slaviero, as the Italian outfit has decided to make its debut in the series here in Misano. The number 25 Volkswagen Golf becoming yet another car model and the latest manufacturer of Volkswagen that is to be joining the grid. Of course, we have the Audis, we had Cupra and Hyundai in Balaton, with Milan Motorsport bringing the i30, the older Hyundai model, as here you can see Konukoglu running slightly wide, trying to push as hard as he can. And of course the Cupra DSG car of Zille Motorsport, with the Hungarian outfit finishing on the podium in their home race in Balaton. You can see once again the brake discs glowing, of course. A very particular sight. It is most definitely the case in daytime, of course, but it's even more visible now in the night as Pelati starts lap number 41. 39 minutes to go. Not long until the pit window opens. It's around 6 minutes from now. With Konukoglu now to the finish line, as the number 2 car is of course looking to close the gap to Sandro Pelati, but of course they are needing to stay calm and stay in the moment. As you can see, despite the late nature of this race, a lot of fans coming to watch, as now you can see the Volkswagen Golf of Ottavio Capelli still holding 5th position so far in the stage 2 standings, but crucially still in front of Sedaka Chan in the sum of the times between stage 1 and stage 2. The Turk is trying to push as hard as she can. She still gained even 2 seconds in the final lap. Kachan's lap times being very quick so far, and her teammate Ibrahim Okiai proved just how quick they can be together. The two of them finishing on the podium and in second place in Balaton in the opening race of the season. As here you can see PMA Motorsport and Franco Girolami getting ready to step into the car for the final half an hour or so. And here you can see the reigning TCR Italy champion and the 2022 TCR Europe title winner, one of the 2 international TCR title holders present here. The other one, of course, being Stefano Comini, who will take over from Ottavio Capelli down at Volkswagen, with Faro Racing still fighting for the lead and the class win in the DSG category, which is of course reserved to the cars that are equipped with a DSG gearbox. As we start now lap number 42 for the leaders and lap 40 for the Gen 1 and DSG classes. Cacciano still pushing and still gaining on Ottavio Capelli 5/10 over the previous lap. As now you can see the Texaco Team AMS number 4 car leader in the Gen 1, in the DSG standings, as they're racing through the night here in Misano. Franco Girolami waving at the camera and getting ready to step in the car. He was the fastest driver in free practice 1. He was the quickest in Q1, posting what is actually the fastest lap time of the entire weekend in a 1 minute 42.3. And now he's getting ready to finish the job. But it needs to be said just how good his teammate Sandro Pelati has been. There's a really great relationship between the two of them. Girolami helping Pelati and coaching him in Vallelunga as well, but fortunately not being able to race together with him as he was involved in the Sprint European Championship in the TCR World, where he's currently fighting for the title once again after winning it in 2022. Girolami being able to race for PMA Motorsport and with Sandro here and doing a phenomenal job at that. Of course, the Audi from PMA being slightly behind in the overall standings in the championship, having missed the round in Balaton, and the number 2 car of Konukoglu Imbrigliadori taking home the entire 47 points available, taking pole position and the race win, which is exactly what PMA is trying to do here in order to gain a bit of ground and perhaps fight for what could be second place in the overall standings, which is currently held by the number 4 car of Kachan and Okiai, who together with the other Texaco Team AMS car, the Gen 1, number 3 of Barkin Pinar and Zekai Özen, are the nearest rivals in the standings for Konukoglu and Brigliadori, as now the night has well and truly come here in Misano, as we are only 4 minutes away from the opening of the pit stop window. Remember, there's a minimum of 2 minutes and 40 seconds to be spent in the pit lane, whereas we saw Konukoglu going slightly wide into turn 14. There is a minimum of 2 tires to be changed, and of course a driver swap if there are more than one driver in the entry list per car. As we saw in Vallelunga, drivers can choose to drive on their own, as Pelati did amazingly so in Vallelunga without dropping in performance one bit, driving for the entire 2 hours throughout the 2 days. But here in Misano, Pelati can count on Franco Girolami not only to give him a hand fatigue wise, but of course pushing as hard as he can, one of the best interpreters of a modern TCR car. But that can be said for Eric Brigliadori as well. He lit up the time screens in both Balaton and Vallelunga, being the fastest driver of the championship, and here being extremely close to Franco Girolami's level, as we saw in qualifying, especially in Q1 when the two went toe-to-toe. Ultimately, Girolami's pace proving to be too much for Brigliadori to match. And here you can see the 3 drivers for Texaco Team AMS, from left to right: Ibrahim Okiai, Zekai Özen and Eric Brigliadori, who are getting ready to jump into their respective cars to finish the job here in Misano at nighttime. We started at dusk and now we are finishing in pure night conditions, as Sandro Pelatti is now going through turns 1, 2 and 3 with only 2 minutes left until the pit window is open, with Turgut Konukoglu 20 seconds behind now in second position. Here you can see Ibrahim Okiai, the leader of the Gentleman Trophy as well in the series, one of the most experienced drivers on the grid. He is 54 years old but still very quick, and of course with a huge experience not only in motorsport in general, with 10 national titles in Turkey, but of course being a former WTCC driver, where he raced full-time in 2008 and then partook in selected races in 2006 and 2011. His latest experience on the world stage being now 13 years ago, but his national experience is definitely second to none on the grid, and he's been very quick throughout the entire season, leading at some point in Balaton as well, where he had the chance to put his DSG car at the top of the overall standings thanks to what was a fantastic strategy call from Texaco Team AMS in a race that truly had it all. We had yellow flags, red flags, strategy, overtakes for the lead, definitely anything and everything happening in round 1. The number 4 car then going on to win the DSG standings in race 2 in Vallelunga as well, where they fought tooth and nail for a spot on the overall podium, ultimately missing out against the sister number 3 car of Pinar and Özen, which looks to be the case here in Misano as well. Of course, we still have 30 minutes and 10 seconds to go, with the pit stop window now open, and so we will see all cars diving into the pit lane in the next 7 to 8 minutes, as the drivers need to spend a minimum of 2 minutes and 40 seconds in the pit lane, changing at least 2 tires. The mantra so far has been to pit for, of course, changing the front tires, which are crucial in front-wheel drive cars such as these. Here you can see Franco Girolami getting ready. to step in the car. Sandro Pelatti did a phenomenal job in the opening 26 minutes of the race, but it's now time for his teammate to shine. As here you can see Ottavio Capelli, another driver who for sure will be in very soon, and in fact he is right now, as Stefano Comini will jump behind the wheel of the Volkswagen Golf number 25. Capelli being quite quick this weekend, despite this one being his first experience in the TCR European Endurance. It's not his first time in an endurance race. He took part in the 2 hours of Magione in 2021 with a Clio Cup and has gathered some experience in Turismo Endurance, but this is definitely his biggest challenge yet. As here you can see race leaders of Sandro Pelatti and Franco Girolami pitting from first position. They are leading not only stage 2 but the overall standings in the entire race as well after their phenomenal performance in stage number 1. And we are also seeing the number 2 car now getting past and then therefore briefly taking the lead in stage 2 with Turgut Konukoglu pitting to give Eric Brigliadori the chance to complete the final 28 minutes of racing. 3 cars in the pit lane, of course, the 2 leaders and Ottavio Capelli, as the other 2 Texaco Team AMS cars of Barkin Pinar and Seda Kachan still lapping around the 4-kilometer track here in Misano. The sun now just a distant memory that we had in stage 1. As here you can see the number 4 car of Seda Kachan crossing the start-finish line. And now Pelatti wishing good luck to Franco Girolami. Of course, the Italian has now finished his efforts in the 3rd round of the season, and he should be and must be proud of what he's done this weekend. A phenomenal job from the PMA Motorsport guys to give them such a competitive car, but of course it's then up to the drivers to get it done. A bit of a problem with one of the security belts on the car, but nothing that can be fixed for sure for PMA Motorsport, as Pelatti is now getting a well-deserved rest after his efforts. Phenomenal job from the number 72 car that now gets back underway, re-overtaking Turgut Konukoglu just behind the Volkswagen Golf of Ottavio Capelli and Stefano Comini, Swiss driver, now behind the wheel of the German car. He's now exiting the pit lane. And right there you can see the leaders, Franco Girolami, trying to heat up his tires, now disengaging the pit limiter and getting back into action in the lead of the race, as the Argentine now has 25 minutes and 53 seconds of racing left, as Eric Brigliadori also exiting the pit lane now. And here is the number 4 car of Seda Kachan, currently pitting, leader of the DSG standings, but likely to lose that title at least for this race, as Stefano Comini and Ottavio Capelli were in front in stage 1 and have gained quite some time over Kachan. Of course, the Turk now being in front because the number 4 car is still yet to pit, though those operations are starting right now with the pit window closing in 3 minutes actually. And now only the number 3 car of Barkin Pinar is left to come in, but I'm sure that the Turk would either do that this lap or the next one, as brand new front tires are being fitted to the number 4 car. Ibrahim Okiai taking over from Seda Kachan, her efforts being enough to be in the lead of the DSG standings in this stage. but unfortunately, her tiny mistake from stage 1, putting the number 4 car on the back foot, as Barkin Pinar briefly led the race with his Gen 1 car, which is definitely something nice to see, but of course, that was on strategy, as the lead for stage 2 is now being handed once again to PMA Motorsport and Franco Girolami, as the number 72 car is now in the lead with what looks to be around a 20-second gap over Eric Brigliadori, so a bit of time gained for the Texaco Team AMS car. We saw then Barkin Pinar pitting in with Zekai Özen now ready to step into the car, the young 21-year-old with some international experience in TCR Italy and Coppa Italia Turismo, where he won the DSG title last year, exactly with this car, so he knows how to run it and how to operate at the best level with this piece of machinery, which is definitely a skill that is needed to excel in the world of motor racing. Turgut Konkoglu and Eric Brigliadori, the only 2 drivers for Texaco Team AMS, still on track. Of course, they pitted earlier than their teammates, of course. Turkish trio, the driving force of the championship so far, leading the overall standings, and of course both the DSG and Gen 1 classes. So Ibrahim Okiai in the number 4 car is back out on track, whereas the number 3 car is still in the pit lane, with Zekai Özen getting strapped in and ready to go as the pit window closes in 13 seconds. Of course, drivers and teams are allowed to finish their pit lane operations after the window has closed. The important thing is to come into the pit lane before that happens, which is something that all drivers and teams have done successfully in both stage 1 and 2. And here we are with the other Texaco Team AMS car, the number 2 of Eric Brigliadori, the young Italian driver fighting for the TCR Italy title twice in a row in 2020 and 2021, ultimately becoming vice champion in 2020 and winning the under 25 category in both years. Started his career in single seaters, but then transitioned to TCR racing, and he's definitely one of the best interpreters of the world of TCR in on both national and European scale, as Brigliadori is now holding second position, which is definitely one step lower than their expectations. Texaco Team AMS used to winning in the overall standings, but this is definitely a result that helps Brigliadori and his teammate Turgut Konukoglu on their way to a maiden title, especially in the TCR European Endurance. So far in the fight for third, it's Zekai Özen and Barkin Pinar holding down the fort in the Gen 1 standings as well, whereas the DSG class sees Ibrahim Okiai and Sadaka Chan in the Texaco Team AMS number 4 car leading the way in stage 2, but unfortunately for them, the gap from the Volkswagen Golf of Stefano Comini and Ottavio Capelli was bigger in stage 1, and therefore Faro Racing is so far in the lead in the sum of the times between stage 1 and 2. Meanwhile, Eric Brigliadori just crossed the line a couple of seconds ago, posting the fastest lap of the race in 1 minute 43.141, 4 tenths quicker than Franco Girolami in their opening lap of battles. Of course, the two of them being separated by 19 seconds. Girolami likely not taking risks, but this is some amazing pace from Eric Brigliadori. The number 2 car being one of the quickest also in the opening run in Balaton, where TCR European Endurance shared the track with TCR Europe in Eastern Europe, in the opening stages of the race. And Brigliadori was among the quickest drivers in the entire field, despite a much heavier car due to the fuel loads being different. And here you can see Brigliadori just trying to maximize every single inch of the racetrack as he now gets ready to cross the line to set yet another fastest lap in a 1 minute 42.8, the first man in stage 2 to dip under the 1 minute 43s. Girolami still holding a great pace in 1 minute 43.6, losing a bit of time compared to Brigliadori, but still holding P1 with a 19-second gap over their teammates. Behind them it's Stefano Comini, who's looking to gain some time, especially on Ibrahim Okiai, though the Turkish outfit was able to build a bit of a gap over Faro Racing throughout the opening 25 minutes, with Seleka Chan building a nice gap over Ottavio Cappelli. The situation has now turned around enough to figure out that Stefano Comini is one of the fastest drivers out on track and is now gaining over Ibrahim Okiai, as he now approaches turn number 14, whereas Franco Girolami is ready to start lap number 52 here in race 3 of the season, with 17 minutes and 28 seconds to go now. Franco Girolami being, of course, one of the best interpreters of the TCR world. He's now back into the TCR Europe Sprint Series, as well as racing today in TCR European Endurance, trying to win the European crown for a second time in 3 years. He did not stay still last season, however, winning the championship in TCR Italy together with Icor Racing. Whereas here with PMA Motorsport, he is now looking to add yet another championship to the list of series where he's won at least one race, with Franco Girolami still lapping a bit slower than Eric Brigliadori, but of course he's not taking any risks, though the pace of the Italian is lightning so far. Another lap time close to the 1 minute 42s, 43.1 to be exact, and still gaining almost 6/10 a lap over Franco Girolami. The gap now down to 18 seconds. Unfortunately, though, that's not enough to close things up on PMA Motorsport. But if a problem would arise with the number 72 car, or a mistake, which would be very unlikely from Franco Girolami, but still can happen, Eric Brigliadori will be in prime position to attack, though he will need to finish at least 36 seconds in front of the Audi prepared by the Italian outfit to overcome the deficit created by PMA Motorsport after stage number 1. Well, nighttime has well and truly arrived here for TCR European Endurance, as the third round of the season is ready to come to a close. We still have 50 minutes of racing plus 1 lap, though, with Franco Girolami keeping first position and still leading the race after what was a phenomenal performance by the entire team, actually, PMA Motorsport, in the entire weekend. They so far finished every single session at the top of the standings, including free practice. They look to be the fastest in qualifying, and they proved that by getting the fastest laps in both Q1 with Franco Girolami and Q2 with Sandro Pelatti, and then took the lead in stage 1 by over 35 seconds, though 10 of those were due to a time penalty for an incorrect starting procedure that Eric Brigliadori found himself in. And now Girolami is looking to get the job done, as he's now starting to speed up actually. 1 minute 43.4 being a very quick lap time for Girolami. Only 2 tenths slower than Eric Brigliadori, who's giving his absolute everything to try and get a move done over Girolami, though he needs almost a miracle to let that happen. Behind them, it's the number 3 car of Zekai Özen, who is inching closer and is now 40 minutes away from being crowned the Gen 1 champions of 2024. And the same can be said for Ibrahim Okiai and Seda Kachan, though they are still trying to get back to the DSG lead in this race, with Stefano Comini and Ottavio Capelli holding that spot after the phenomenal performance they had in stage number 1. But this is where the mistakes could start to creep in. Of course, it's night time, it's tougher on the drivers, fatigue starts being a factor as well, as here you can see Girolami lapping one of the Texaco Team AMS cars. It's Ibrahim Okiai in the number 4. And of course, these final 30 minutes need to be taken very seriously by the drivers, as they cannot afford any mistakes. The position is still not safe for a possible spin or even worse, an incident. And it's definitely nice to see a championship such as the TCR European Endurance not only come to Misano, but of course using the track's lighting system to race at night. And here you can see Stefano Comini currently in front of Eric Brigliadori, but turning his left blinker on just to signal the young Italian that the Swiss driver from Faro Racing was taking a wider line through turn 14 to let the fastest car on the track so far through. Brigliadori using that to his advantage and clearing the Faro Racing Volkswagen, who is now a lap down, but still, crucially, in the lead of the DSG standings for this race. Ibrahim Okiai, on the other hand, holding second position in the category reserved to cars with the DSG gearbox. And of course, finishing the race would mean that the number 4 car would be crowned champion in the DSG class. They have been outstanding all season, winning both races in Balaton and Vallelunga and getting the best of their rivals every single time, beating Zile Motorsport in Balaton, though the home favorites put up a big fight with Zoltan Barkovic and Balázs Takacs fighting as hard as they could in Balaton, but unfortunately that wasn't enough to beat the number 4 car. And then in Vallelunga they had to face off the 2 Cupras of RC Motorsport and Brothers in Arms, doing that brilliantly however, to get to Misano in a prime position to win the title, which is exactly what they're looking to do now. Whereas the fight for the overall standings, which is so far being dominated by the number 2 car of Turgut Konukoglu and Eric Brigliadori, still being up for grabs ahead of the final round of the season. Texaco Team AMS is definitely looking to become the team's champions after this round and basically securing the overall title, but which car will take that title is yet to be decided, as both, at least mathematically, both the DSG car of Okiai and Kachan and the Gen 1 piece of machinery driven by Zekai Özen and Ibrahim and Barkin Pinar could still potentially win the title if something was to happen to the number 2 car of Brigliadori and Konukoglu, which is everything the motorsport really is. You're never safe until you cross the start-finish line. And even then, there's still some factors yet to be decided. As now we're following Zekai Özen through the final sector of the race. And here you can see PMA Motorsport watching on the monitors as Franco Girolami navigates the final 9 minutes and 10 seconds of the race. Lovely close-up of the tires fitted to the TCR European Endurance cars. Kumo being the tire provider for the championship, which is the same tire provider as the TCR World Tour, which is why the series is also eligible for gaining points and places in a TCR World Ranking, which saw Sandro Pelati climbing up to 60th in the world after Vallelunga, and other drivers such as Sedaka Chan, Ibrahim Okiai and Zekai Özen themselves gaining more than 200 spots since the start of the season. Climbing the ladder as this man right here is looking to celebrate his first win in the TCR European Endurance together with coach and friend Franco Girolami. Perhaps it won't be the outcome that Eric Brigliadori and Turgut Konukoglu hoped for, but it's still a good result for the number 2 car if they were to finish in second position, as they would once again improve the situation in the overall standings to their favor, as of course Texaco Team AMS looks to be crowned team champions after today's race. Here you can see Zekai Özen handling the car brilliantly. He's been definitely one of the surprises of the season, the leader of the junior trophy, being for sure one of the quickest drivers so far, not only here in Misano but of course in the entire series. Now 1 minute 46.6 set by Zekai Özen, as now Franco Girolami starts lap number 58. In the DSG class, it's still Stefano Comini together with teammate Ottavio Capelli in the lead of the DSG standings when combining the results of stages 1 and 2. Though in the second part of the race, it's Ibrahim Okiai and Sedaka Chan who are in front. But unfortunately for them, the gap between them and Faro Racing in stage 1 was too large to overcome so far. Of course, we still have 6 minutes and 13 seconds to go. And here are the stage 2 standings in the top left corner. Handful of minutes left now in this third round. We've seen definitely a new contender this weekend in PMA Motorsport. Not that they weren't quick in Vallelunga, but of course the addition of a driver such as Franco Girolami has massively helped the team, though it needs to be said that Sandro Pelati has made a very big step forward compared to his season debut in Italy a month ago, which is definitely nice to see. And he has been able to take the fight and get quite a big of a gap compared to Turgut Konukoglu and the number 2 crew in general. And here they are, Konukoglu and Brigliadori lapping their sister car, the number 4 of Ibrahim Okiai, letting the faster sister car equipped with a sequential gearbox, as Brigliadori has brought the gap down to 17.3 seconds. On Franco Girolami, it was over 20 at the start of their respective stints. That gap being created by Sandro Pelati in a phenomenal manner. throughout the opening 25 minutes of racing here in Misano. And so it's 4 minutes and 25 seconds to go, with Franco Girolami still holding the lead, as Eric Brigliadori still looking to bring the gap down, gain some time on Girolami, though the last couple of laps have been in favor of the Argentine, who has stayed incredibly consistent since the start of his stint. He was lapping in the high 1 minute 43s and has stayed on that pace all stint long. Brigliadori started out quicker, also dipping in the 42s to set the fastest lap of the session in a 1 minute 42.8, but has now dipped in the 1 minute 44s as tires start to wear, and the challengers are left on track for the last 3.5 minutes or so. Here is Ibrahim Okiai, who is not only ready to step on the DSG podium for a third consecutive time in 3 races after winning the opening 2 rounds of the season in the category reserved to cars with the DSG gearbox, but of course the crown champion of the DSG standings, together with teammate and friend Sedaka Chan, who has been and is still a driving force in female motorsport in the TCR world, especially in Hungary, but on the international scale as well. She has been, in fact, the first female in the history of TCR European Endurance to, of course, win a race in her respective class, and of course lead at one point throughout the opening race in Balaton. Kachan proving to be quicker and quicker as the season went on, despite her needing to learn some of the tracks, whereas drivers like Brigliadori and Girolami have been to Misano before, Pelati as well, which is definitely something to take into consideration in order to analyze the performance of the drivers. But honestly, there was nothing to say against the talent of the entire PMA Motorsport crew, team that has raced on the international scale in the TCR world many times in the past few seasons, and that is now looking to add yet another win to its roster. Oh, and we have the number 2 car actually of Brigliadori in the gravel now, which is definitely something very unexpected, as Brigliadori has maybe gone off in one of the corners. You see some smoke from the third sector of the racetrack, and this is definitely a spanner in the works for the number 2 car, because they were at least one lap in front of Zekai Özcan, but with 1 minute and 6 seconds plus 1 lap to go, and it almost looks to be race over now for Eric Brigliadori, who is off in the gravel trap. And this is definitely not what the number 2 crew needed. The incident coming at the final corner of the racetrack, as he went off in the gravel trap, and this is not what Texaco Team AMS wanted. Of course, the number 2 guy has a healthy advantage in the standings, but this will open things right up if Zekai Özcan and also Ibrahim Okiai can get past before the end of the race, as Girolami starts the penultimate lap of race number 3. Unbelievable scenes from Eric Brigliadori, who was doing such a good job throughout his final stint of the race. He was pushing as hard as he could, but this could be one of the turning points of the season, really. Though the gap of the number 2 car is quite big in the standings, it is some unnecessary pressure on their shoulders ahead of the final round. PMA Motorsport still holding the lead. And they need to be as focused as ever in the final 7 kilometers or so. And this is just proof that you're never safe in motorsport racing. You need to bring the car to the checker flag, and that's the only way you could be crowned champion in any series. As Girolami is now getting ready to start the final lap, the clock has hit 0. Therefore, we will only have one more lap of racing. And now we shall see if Zekai Özen can get past Eric Brigliadori, which honestly looks to be the case, as the Turkish driver is now on the same lap of Brigliadori, who is unfortunately still stuck in the gravel at the final corner, where now Franco Girolami is starting the final lap of the race. The board being shown to the Argentine by the marshals on the pit wall. The last 4 kilometers for Franco Girolami. Now the confirmation from the live timings that Zekai Özen has moved into second position, overtaking Eric Brigliadori, which will likely be the case with Stefano Comini and Ibrahim Okiay as well. Heartbreak for the number 2 car, who has, and it still is, slipping down the standings, as Brigliadori will then finish in 5th position, still taking home points of course, but definitely a smaller amount compared to what it looked like a couple of minutes ago. It's going to be 24 points added to their tally compared to the 35 that would have been if they had stayed in second. And this ultimately brings Faro Racing and their drivers Ottavio Capelli and Stefano Comini on the provisional overall podium here in Misano. They just need to finish this final lap. It's a real shame for Eric Brigliadori. He was doing such a good job, especially pushing hard through the night in his final stint, but nothing could have stopped PMA Motorsport this time around. Fastest team in FP1, in FP2, in qualifying, in stage 1 and in stage 2. It's checkered flag for the 3rd round of the season of the TCR European Endurance, and in Misano it's PMA Motorsport who takes the win, with Sandro Pelatti and Franco Girolami taking the checkered flag first, becoming the 2nd ever winner in the overall standings of a race in TCR European Endurance. And of course, for the first time ever, we have 3 different teams standing on the overall podium. Zekai Özen finishing in 2nd position, the best ever result for the Gen 1 car entrusted to him and Barkin Pinar. And then in a very unlikely scenario, it's Stefano Comini and Ottavio Capelli who finish on the overall podium and win in the DSG class. Sandro Pelatti almost can't believe it, as PMA Motorsport is a race winning team in TCR European Endurance. But what a story for Faro Racing, winning in the DSG class in the first race for Stefano Comini since coming back to the TCR world. Of course, a 2-time TCR International Series champion back in 2015 and 2016, and both him and Ottavio Capelli did a phenomenal job together with the team as they bring the Volkswagen Golf on the overall podium and to the top step of the DSG standings. Here, unfortunately, the stricken number 2 car of Eric Brigliadori and Turgut Konukoglu with their bonnet up. Definitely not the final surprise that they wanted, as they lose ground in the championship fight. Of course, the number 2 crew still being the leaders in the overall standings, but this is definitely throwing a spanner in the works for Texaco Team AMS's best car so far during the series. But what a spectacular ending to the race. Still, a phenomenal job from the number 2 crew, especially Eric Brigliatori in this final stint. Unfortunately, either a mistake or a technical issue on the car that is now stricken at the final corner. But what a performance from Franco Girolami and Sandro Pelatti. The latter now waiting for his teammate to come back to the pit lane to congratulate him on what has been a phenomenal performance. And of course, we don't discover Franco Girolami's fantastic performances and talent here in the TCR world, but of course his race has been nothing short of amazing, together with Sandro Pelatti, who did actually possibly the best job he could have in the opening stint. Built a healthy 20-second gap over Eric Brigliatori's teammate Turgut Konukoglu, which was everything that PMA Motorsport was asking them to do. And so it's victory for PMA Motorsport as Franco Girolami and Sandro Pelatti will stand on the top step of the podium, as now the number 72 car gets to park firme, as Pelatti puts the number 1 board in front of his teammate and friend. And it's a great result for the team who has worked so hard to get into the series in Vallelunga, with Pelatti racing on his own and then being joined by Franco Girolami in what has been a triumphant weekend and one to remember for the Italian outfit, as they take victory here in TCR European Endurance, becoming the second team ever to do so in the overall standings, and the second crew ever after the number 2 car took wins in both Balaton and Vallelunga. Girolami congratulating every single member of the team, which is definitely nice to see. Nothing but a class act is Franco Girolami, together with Sandro Pelatti also. Okay. A lovely performance from PMA Motorsport as Pelatti and Girolami take home the win. Not only were they the fastest drivers in qualifying and in stage 1, but they also dominated the final part of the race. Sadaka-chan and Eric Brigliatori going to explain to Sandro what happened possibly on the final few laps of the race. Brigliatori's teammate Turgut Konukoglu unfortunately having to witness what happened to the number 2 car. This definitely seems to be a mechanical issue of some sort, but unfortunately for them, no matter the reason, they still finished in 5th. It's some important points, of course, but it's not what the number 2 car wanted ahead of the final few minutes of this race. And now let's watch some of the highlights of this stage 2. You can see just how different the lighting conditions were at the start of this final part of the race, with Sandro Pelatti holding P1 ahead of Turgut Konukoglu, the Turk, driving the number 2 car faultlessly, but unfortunately just not able to keep up with the Italians' raw speed. Behind them it was Barkin Pinar in the number 3 car, holding 3rd position in the overall standings, as once again the DSG class provided a great spectacle, with the Volkswagen Golf of Faro Racing fighting with the number 4 Texaco Team AMS car for a spot on the overall podium, and of course the DSG win. Here you can see just the lovely images of the cars driving around in the night as dusk became nighttime. Pelati did a phenomenal job throughout his stint before handing the car over to Franco Girolami, who got the job done in the end. Turkonukoglu letting Eric Brigliadori finish this one out, and it was looking great for the championship leaders as they were the fastest car on track in the final few laps, and Brigliadori was looking to be very racy on Franco Girolami. Of course, the gap being too big to try and make a move on race leaders, but Brigliadori was definitely among the quickest driver. He was actually the quickest one of them all in the final part of the race, but unfortunately and off in the final racing lap actually of this third round of the season proved to be costly for the number 2 car, as we can see it stick and stricken on the gravel. But it was phenomenal from PMA Motorsport. And here is the number 72 Audi RS3 of Sandro Pelati and Franco Girolami. Just phenomenal from them throughout the entire weekend. They definitely had some raw speed in hand in Vallelunga, as we saw with Pelati, and they were one of the hot favorites coming into this round with the addition of a driver such as Franco Girolami to their roster. But their speed ultimately proved to be too much for the others, as they will lead the overall podium here in Misano, where 3 different teams will stand on it. And as we see the highlights once again for a race that really had it all, especially in stage 2 and in the final few minutes, with late drama, changing the course of the championship. Of course, it's going to be very tough for other teams to fight against Takasaki Team AMS, especially the number 2 car for the championship. Whereas we are ready now to witness the podium, and you can see here Sedaka-chan winning the ladies trophy once again for the 3rd consecutive time this year. Lovely performance from Sedaka-chan, especially today. Her little mistake in stage number 1 proving to be crucial in the fight for the DSG win. And here is Zakai Özen, triumphant in the junior category, which is reserved to drivers under 21 years of age. And it was brilliant to see Özen in the Gen 1 car being at ease with the task ahead of him despite his very young age, but bright talent for Turkish motorsport in the TCR world, as Özen was capable of winning the junior category in both Balaton and Vallelunga, despite, especially in the latter one, a big fight against their rivals. And of course Sandro Pelati taking the win in the gentleman's standings. It was Ibrahim Okiai who took that first spot back in Balaton, but Pelati did so back in Vallelunga in round 2, and of course here in Misano for the 3rd round of the season. And now we will be ready to watch the 3 main podiums for the 3 standings, starting with the Gen 1 category with Barkin Pinar and Zekai Özen taking first position, and of course being crowned the Gen 1 champions for the opening season of the TCR European Endurance. No other team can catch them now in the standings reserved to those cars who haven't received any upgrades until the start of 2018 as per the WSC regulations. And so we have our first pair of champions in the TCR European Endurance's short history. The PMA Motorsport guys waiting for the overall standings ceremony to start in order to see their two drivers getting on the top step of the podium. It was, of course, a phenomenal race here in Misano, the third round of the season. Still have one more race to go to decide who will be champions at the end of 2024. So far, it's been a great journey between Balaton, Vallelunga, and now Misano. 3 different tracks, but loved by the drivers in different conditions. We had, of course, nighttime driving here, as we now get to watch the DSG podium with Sedaka-chan in second position, just missing out on the win in the standings for the first time. But here is the winning duo of Faro Racing, Stefano Comini, in his comeback back to top spot, and Ottavio Capelli doing just what he needed to do to secure the win in the category reserved to drivers and cars with the DSG gearbox. But it's still plenty of miles for Texaco Team AMS, as Sedaka-chan together with Ibrahim Hokiai was able to finish in second and of course be crowned champions of the DSG class. The Turkish team taking home the title, but it's Faro Racing that is the winner in the DSG category today in Misano, and a great performance for the whole team at Faro Racing. They were outstanding throughout practice, and then despite a bit of a setback in qualifying with some engine issues, they were able to come back in the race, be very consistent, and thanks to Ottavio's brilliant racecraft and Stefano Comini's raw pace, the Italian and Swiss duo was able to finish in first position. And here is also Ibrahim Oké, a bit late to the party, but of course still happy to finish in second place. He still has his champagne to open with his teammate Sedaka-chan. Still happy with the result. Of course, they were expected to be the fastest pair in the DSG category after winning both races at the start of the season in Balaton and Vallelunga. But ultimately they had to settle for second position behind Faro Racing, and now we are ready to witness the final podium, maybe the most important of them all, with the only team left to be presented on the podium, which is PMA Motorsport, at least in its entirety, with Sandro Pelatti winning the gentleman's class standings, doing so after a brilliant time in Vallelunga as well. And third place finish for Stefano Comini and Ottavio Capelli, Faro Racing, finishing, albeit surprisingly, on the podium after a late drama for the number 2 car that saw Eric Vigliadori go off track at the final corner. Second position for the Gen 1 car of Zekai Özen and Barkin Pinar, their best ever result in TCR European Endurance, and the win goes to PMA Motorsport, as Franco Girolami and Sandro Pelatti were able to be the best of the field. And let's hear the national anthem of Italy. The Italian national anthem blasting through the speakers here in Misano for PMA Motorsport as the Italian outfit clinches the win and becomes effectively the first team under Italian flag to win in the overall standings in TCR European Endurance. Third place finishes presented with the trophies by the series promoter Maurizio Slaviero, with Faro Racing finishing in third, Texaco Team AMS in second, and of course PMA Motorsport winning it all here in Misano for the third round of the season. We still have one more race to go to decide who will be crowned as the overall champions in the opening season of TCR European Endurance's history. But of course I want to thank you for being with us, not only for stage 2 but also for stage 1 earlier today. Thank you for being with us, and with the joy and the champagne party starting on the podium, it's goodbye from us at TCR European Endurance, and see you guys at the next round.